There's a crazy new Stranger Things theory about who's gonna die in Volume 2.
Dude, this season has been crazy.
Yeah, but spoiler warning if you haven't seen it yet. So remember back when we got the trailer for Season 4? People started to find like a hidden picture in the trailer that showed like a bunch of different gates to the Upside Down.
Yeah, I remember when it like flashed on the screen really quick.
And in this season, we learned that wherever and whenever Vecna kills someone, it will create a new portal to the Upside Down.
Right.
So the theory is that the hidden picture in the trailer is literally showing us how many people are going to be killed in this season because of how many portals there are. Because in the picture, it shows us 4 different portals, but so far, only 3 portals have been created because of Vecna's killing. So that means someone in the next 2 episodes will die because we know that Vecna targets people that have extreme guilt. So that means it could possibly be Steve because we know he has a lot of guilt from being a bully in high school. And it could also be Nancy because she has so much guilt for Barb.
Yeah, Barb needs some justice.
Yeah, but it also could be Hopper because we learned that he has a lot of guilt because of the death of his daughter Sarah.
Okay, I don't want Steve to die, but I just feel like he might die. Do you know the dark Up theory, how Carl killed his wife?
What?
So in the movie Up, we see one of the happiest, saddest montages where we see Carl and Ellie grow up together and fall in love.
I don't think I'll ever recover from that scene.
Same. So we see throughout the scene them go through their ups and downs, and we see how they couldn't have kids, and we see how Ellie dies. But what if I told you there's a theory that confirms how she died?
No.
So think about it. We know that Carl was 78 years old at the beginning of Up, which makes him born in the 1930s. And we know that Ellie's around the same age as him, so she was also born in the 1930s. And we see how Carl buys Ellie a house, but it's like really beat up, and it's older than them.
Right, it's pretty old looking.
And Pixar's always trying to make their movies like factual and scientific, right? Just look at the movie Finding Nemo.
Right.
So this is where the theory comes in. There's the theory that Carl's decision to buy the house is actually what killed Ellie.
What?
So the houses that were made before the 1940s in the United States, especially in Utah, where Up takes place, were found to have high levels of lead in their paint.
Oh, don't tell me.
So I saw a Reddit post, and lead exposure could actually lead to reproductive issues. And that's why we see Carl and Ellie have a hard time having kids. They don't have kids. And we also see how they remodel their new home, right? But if you look at the walls, you can tell that's like really old paint. So it probably has lead in it. And since there was a lot of lead inside the paint, they probably inhaled a lot of lead. And this made Ellie infertile.
This is making the movie so much sadder.
Yeah, so when you experience lead poisoning, it kills you over time because lead poisoning gets stuck inside your bones and decays your bones over time, eventually killing you. And that's why too Ellie has a hard time climbing up the hill when she gets older, because her bones are decaying.
I honestly think this is the saddest theory I've heard. Have you ever wondered what the difference is between people that use iPhones and people that use Androids?
Here you go, you're gonna start a huge war right now.
Okay, so New York Post made an article and there was actually a study done to show the difference between people who choose to use iPhones and people who choose to use Androids. So in this study, they tested 1,000 iPhone users and 1,000 Android users. And it was found that people that use Androids over iPhones are more introverted than iPhone users. But they found that Android users tested higher with levels of honesty and humility, but iPhone users are more adventurous.
First question when you meet someone now, do you have an Android? Okay, I could trust you.
And they found that overall, Android users are smarter with their money and spend less than iPhone users in their everyday life. Like they found that Android users spend half the amount on clothes, technology, and beauty products per month than iPhone users.
So they spend half the amount that iPhone users spend. Great, and I have an iPhone.
I know, and they found that people that use iPhones almost take twice as many selfies, send twice as many texts, and spend more time on their phone per day. Dude, my screen time is 13 hours a day.
Okay, I thought mine was bad. Mine's 9 hours. You know about the guy who escaped prison by using a custom motorcycle?
What?
So you know how El Chapo is like one of the biggest, like most successful criminals to ever live, and he's escaped prison so many times.
Dude, I never understood how he escaped so many times.
So back in 2014, El Chapo got arrested, and this was his second time being arrested, and the police knew that he already escaped once, so they were monitoring like his every move. Damn, they even put a security camera in El Chapo's cell to watch his every move. They actually listened to every single conversation he had within the prison, and every single phone call he had, they were monitoring it. So there was no way of escaping. So El Chapo's men knew that they could not talk to their boss, so they would have to come up with a plan on their own. So what they did was they got El Chapo's money and bought it like a bunch of land a mile away from the prison.
How does that help?
So they started building 2 homes on the land, but there was one thing that was different about these homes. It was just a shell. So it looked like a home on the outside, but on the inside it was empty.
What?
So inside one of the homes, El Chapo's men started digging a huge hole straight down. It was like an 8-foot hole. Then they got their pickaxes and started like digging a tunnel towards the prison. And while they're digging the tunnel, they're putting these railroad tracks down.
Wait, railroad tracks like for a train?
So El Chapo's men knew that they had to work really fast because the Mexican government knew that El Chapo could escape. So they were in the process of trying to move him to another prison. So every day and night, El Chapo's men were like digging constantly. So after 16 months of digging, they actually had a 1-mile tunnel to El Chapo's prison cell.
How did nobody hear them digging?
So what they did was they broke the bottom of El Chapo's shower in his cell, and they called for his boss like, hey, we're down here. So then El Chapo jumped straight down, and at this moment, I'm sure it was super loud. So then El Chapo hopped on like a custom motorcycle that was connected to the railroad tracks, and he just took off. So he rode down the tunnel, and then he hopped up, climbed up, hopped into a garbage truck, and then took off. And it happened so fast, he got away, and the guards couldn't catch him.
The fact that they pulled all this off in 16 months is crazy.
You know about the man who like escaped prison just by using a bowl of soup?
No.
So I saw a video by Thought82, and when you think of someone like escaping prison, you think they have like a really complex plan or they have like special tools to break them out. But for Japanese prisoner Yoshi Shiratori, he actually just used a bowl of soup to escape.
How?
So before Shiratori went to jail, he was like a fisherman, like he had a bunch of goals for his family. But sadly, he couldn't get a better job because he didn't have like the proper education. So he like turned to gambling, and everything went wrong when he started going into gambling. He ended up getting accused for a murder that he says he never committed. Even Shiratori said that he did not commit the murder, but nobody believed him. So he got thrown in jail. But luckily for him, after a few weeks, he was able to find like a metal like wire, and he was able to break himself out of jail because he was a locksmith.
What the heck?
But get this, a couple days later after escaping, he got arrested again. But this time they put him in a jail cell, and there was like a vent, like a skylight vent above him. There was rusted screws, and he was able to break the screws, and he escaped again.
So he's gotten away twice now.
Yeah, so after he got away the second time, he went to go visit his friend who's a police officer, but then his friend called the police on him, and then Shiratori got arrested again. But this time when they put Shiratori in prison, they put him in a max security prison, so there was no chance of escaping.
This guy cannot catch a break.
So this prison was built so that no one could escape, and this time they put iron shackles around his ankles and like handcuffs around his wrists so that he could not escape. So the cell had no windows, all it had was thick walls. By the front there was like a little slot for food.
Okay.
So every day after getting beat up by like the guards and the prisoners, Shiratori would receive a bowl of hot soup. But Shiratori decided not to eat the soup because he realized that the soup had high levels of salt in it. And salty liquids, when put on iron material, it can actually make it rust and break away.
Dude, no way.
Yeah, and for months, Shiratori would spit the hot soup on his handcuffs and his shackles and like the little food slot so it'd slowly start rusting away, and slowly and eventually broke open.
Shut up.
He then dislocated his shoulders and he fit right through the food slot and escaped.
Dude, this guy's a genius.
Yeah, he's the only one to ever escape the prison, but this story gets even crazier. Do you know about the man who escaped prison by putting himself in a box and shipping him through the mail and escaped?
There's no way.
So in 1987, there was a guy named Richard McNair who was 29 years old, and he lived like a really nice life. He was a sergeant at his Air Force base. He was respected. So that all changed the day before he turned 30. And the day before he turned 30, he went to go rob a grain farm to steal some grain. Until this day, no one understands why he did it. He had like nothing to gain by that.
Yeah, why would he steal it? He seems like he has a pretty good life going.
Yeah, it's really strange. So after that, he went to go rob two other people, and in the process of the robbery, he accidentally killed them.
Wait, what?
So the police found McNair, arrested him, and took him to the station, and they started interrogating him. But McNair was a very smart man, and he had a little chapstick in his pocket.
What the heck does chapstick do?
He used it as a lubricant, and he put it on his wrist, and it made his like wrist really slippery, so the handcuffs just slid right off his wrist. So when the police weren't looking, he took them off, and he just took off running.
Wait, that's actually pretty smart.
So the police started chasing McNair out of the station, and McNair's just running, right? He's running a couple blocks. All of a sudden, he gets to a building, and he climbs up the stairs. It's a 3-story building, and the police are right on his tail. So McNair's looking like, what should I do? Only option was to jump out of the window. So he jumps out of a 3-story building window, falls into a tree.
Dude, what is this guy thinking?
The tree branch broke, and he falls to the ground. So the police arrest him. So McNair was then put into prison, and when he was in prison serving his sentence, like for killing the two people, he started like carving a little hole in his cell, like around the little like window where the bars are. And right when he's about to get out, the guards caught him.
Okay, I don't see how this guy's gonna mail himself out of the prison.
Just wait. So once he got caught for trying to get out, he then was given a 30-year sentence and 2 life sentences for the murders and the robbery. And they moved him to a max security prison. So he was stuck there for a couple years until he found this loophole. You know about the kid that couldn't leave his house and he would spy on his neighbors and he actually caught a killer?
No.
So it's based on real events about a kid named Cal who actually got in trouble at his school for beating up his teacher, and he was actually sentenced to house arrest.
What?
So he was forced to wear an ankle monitor around his ankle so it would track him wherever he went so he could never go outside. And every time he would try to leave his house, his ankle monitor would start flashing red and the police would come and have to give him a warning. Basically, he was stuck in his house and all he would do is play video games until his mom canceled his Xbox account and he was left with nothing to do.
Dude, that sucks.
Yeah, so it forced him to entertain himself. So what he would do is stare outside his window and observe his neighbors. Like, he got to know all his neighbors' routines really well. So he'd be like, this neighbor goes to work at this time. This neighbor's cheating on their husband. And like, he just was so obsessed with watching his neighbors.
That's a little creepy.
So he ended up spying on his neighbor Ashley, who he had a huge crush on, and it turns out she actually kind of liked him too. But one night, Cal was watching the news, and on the news, they were talking about this girl that went missing. But the last time they saw her, she was seen with a guy in a green Mustang. And later that night, on Cal's street, he sees a green Mustang pull up with a dent on the front of the car. So Cal realized that that Mustang looked exactly like the same Mustang on the news, and it actually belonged to his neighbor, Mr. Turner.
That's weird.
So the next day, Cal, Ashley, and their friend Ronnie started spying on Mr. Turner. And that night, they saw Mr. Turner bring home a girl from dinner, and they thought, like, he might kill this girl. So they're spying on them and watching them, right? And they don't see anything weird. Until later that night, Cal got his binoculars and started looking at Mr. Turner's house again, and he saw the girl freaking out and screaming.
So he's killing her.
Yeah, so Cal gets his camera, but he forgets that the flash is on. So he takes a picture and the flash goes off, and Mr. Turner sees him.
Rookie mistake.
So then Cal's freaking out. He's like, hides underneath his window, and then he looks up and he sees the girl's car drive off. So he's like, oh, so she's fine. She got away.
Wait, she left?
Yeah, so the next day, Cal wakes up and goes to his kitchen, and Mr. Turner's in his house. And Mr. Turner's helping Cal's mom, and he looks like a really nice guy.
So he's actually good then.
Well, later that night, Cal and Ashley were back in Cal's room, and they decided to look at Mr. Turner's house again, and they noticed a bunch of blood on his window. And they saw Mr. Turner dragging a big black trash bag down his steps and putting it into his garage.
Dude, what is going on?
So the next day, they decide to have Ronnie go sneak into Mr. Turner's car when he wasn't there and try to. You know the super sad Thor Love and Thunder theory?
No.
So in every trailer that Taika Waititi produces, he literally puts music, big songs in his trailers that actually foreshadow what happens in the movie, like we saw in Thor Ragnarok. And in the Thor Love and Thunder trailer, we actually see Sweet Child of Mine being played.
So what does that foreshadow?
So before I get into that, in the trailer, we actually see Korg talking to a bunch of kids in space, and he's telling them about Thor. And he's telling these stories about Thor, but everything he's saying is in the past tense, as if Thor is gone and no longer with them. But the song Sweet Child of Mine kind of confirms this.
It was really weird how he was talking in the past tense.
So in this song Sweet Child of Mine, it's about a guy who loves a girl. And the original music video that was shot for Sweet Child of Mine was actually shot in black and white. And it looks exactly like what we see in the trailer, where we see Thor and Jane like hook fingers. And then we see how they're about to fight Gore. It's like the final battle.
There has to be a reason they picked that song.
So in the song Sweet Child of Mine, the song goes, she's got eyes of the bluest skies. As we see in the trailer, right, when she's using the power of Thor, her eyes are blue from the thunder and lightning. And this song goes, I hate to look into those eyes and see an ounce of pain. As we know, Jane Foster will be having cancer in the movie, and that's why Thor doesn't want to see her in pain. Then this is where it gets crazy. The song goes, and pray for the thunder and the rain to quietly pass me by. And this song is being sung from the perspective of the guy, which is Thor. Thor's literally saying that he wants the thunder and the rain to pass him by. He no longer wants to be a part of his powers. He doesn't want him anymore. He wants Jane to take it over, because Thor knows that Jane needs the power of Thor to be able to live in order to survive cancer.
Sorry, bro, I almost forgot. Alright, good night, bro.